Hello everyone, I'm back at Bayou Bandit and this time it's personal. Okay, it's not really personal, it's just another practice session for me. This time I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm not going to work on the cross step like I did on the front nine. I'm going to work more on my standstill and potentially even one step throws just to get things down. I bought a couple new fairway drivers the other day, so I'm going to be using that. In this bag I've got 7 fairway drivers and 4 putters, and I'm just going to basically practice throwing normally, conventionally, backhand with a standstill, and I may throw in a little forehand here and there, but it's mostly going to be backhand. But let's try to keep it pithy. Let's go. And there is the basket down that away. I will be aiming accordingly. I will be listing the fairway drivers here. That's what I'll be throwing primarily, and typically in that order, just to keep things somewhat consistent. I'm trying to learn from the understable to the overstable in terms of what I've got. Let's go. How's it going?
Doing a YouTube tutorial?
Yeah, well, more like YouTube showing how bad I am.
Hey, any content is good content.
Yeah. That's the goal.
And YouTube shit also.
Yeah.
Mainly video games, but.
Oh, cool. That's how I should throw my overstable shot. Let's see. Too high, but I like the shape. This is super overstable. I meant to aim that a little higher to get a little bit of a flex. And it looks like I threw my FD best, so that's what I'm going to go with. And here are the 4 putters that I'm using with the descriptions above them. I'm not really planning on getting into them in, but I am going to play this kind of smart. Not bad, all fairly close, easy tap-ins. Let's go to the next hole. So what I mean by tap-in is I can still easily miss the putt. Anyways, this hole 11 is a little bit of a long bomber. Now I'm not here to focus on distance, I'm here to focus on control. I'm here to also learn these fairway drivers. So I'd be surprised if I do more than 200 on any of these throws. And I'm fine with throwing multiple times, you know, fairly high effort to get kind of closer to the basket, because I'm here to learn how to throw the fairway drivers. That's the primary point of me being here. Starting from my most understable, so I've got to try to have the release a little bit lower. Because what I do is I keep turning them, and I always hit that tree with the leopard. So in theory I could aim lower, or I can be this way and let it kind of curve around. This is my next most understable. It's a little bit more stable. Now if I went that route with the leopard, that may have actually gone straight. This one I like to throw a little bit higher because it'll get more of a flight, more of its intended flight. Didn't quite get the turn I wanted. That's about what I wanted. Again, these are all what I should have thrown the leopard with. I need to hook it a little bit more down. Now that I'm especially getting more overstable. There we go. Still too high, but I like the path. This will be the last of the drivers that I throw. Well, maybe not. I released that with hyzer. So that definitely hurt my chances of having good flight. Now this is very overstable, so it's designed to hook hard. So I need to try to throw it with an hyzer. I threw it low. Alright, let's go collect my discs. Alrighty, so the worst throw I had was with this leopard. I'm barely 100 feet away from the tee pad. All my other throws were about 150 to 180 in that direction, but a little bit off the fairway. Since I want to get more practice, I'm going to take it from this worst lie. That's actually what I expect to throw out of that leopard. All these are going to be more stable, so I'm going to have to adjust accordingly. That one turned too much, so I couldn't get the full flight out of it. I turned that one too, but that got what I expected. That should technically be the driver I make the most progress with at my skill level. I think I should have used that flight path for the eagle, that release. There we go. That's the turn that I expect, and the fade. And I need to dial in the hyzer shot with this whippet, so there we go. That's the flex I wanted. So I actually do pretty decent standstill, even though the distance isn't nearly as good as what most of you can get. But I like it. Alrighty, I actually got the most distance out of my cheetah, the least distance after the whippet, which I expected the whippet to get the least distance, considering how overstable it is. My FD got the most distance, the second most distance, probably about 5 feet shy of the cheetah. The cheetah was over there. And I went with the FD because it's just the best line at looking at. Now I've got putting practice. Let's go. Alright, the funniest thing about the pig featured today and my hydra not featured in this video is they both have a rim thickness or wing length of about 1.4 centimeters, which is longer than most or many mid-ranges if they're classified as a putter with speed 3. I personally consider those approach discs or mid-ranges, but that's at my level. Regardless, I'm going to go ahead and throw a number of discs that way. Alright, you know the rules. Understable, stable. Oh, I need this hydra. Well, I need to get around that. So, that's usually as good as I get with any driver. Here's slightly more stability. And it got past some trees. Sort of a weird one, stable, but it turns easily, fades decently. That's the flight path that I want to curve it around a little bit. Got through, in fact, it's real close to the basket. My stable, more straight flying. There we go. Now that was a favorable bounce. I put too much anhyzer on it, but I got saved by a tree. I'm going to use a similar line with this. Oh no, I didn't. I released it early, which is fine. It got up there. You'll notice this tree I'm trying to avoid. There we go. That's the flight that I want. Right next to the basket. last this whippet is going to require more serious anhyzer. The downside is I have to get closer to this tree to use it, but it'll curve down more aggressively, but that's a good flex. Let's see what I've got. So absolutely amazing. All 7 of the throws, only 2 I'm focusing on here. These are the 2 closest ones. Technically this T-bird is slightly obstructed, it's slightly closer. This cheetah is completely unobstructed and about a foot or 2 further back. But I would take every one of these 7 throws every day of the week. Alright, I've got a fairly easy putt situation from here. In theory this would be a birdie look. The first 2 I didn't commit. The second 2 I did, so remember kids, commit. In fact, if you've watched my putter series, I have stance, grip, line, and rip. I didn't build a line with those first 2, I just kind of tossed them. I built a line on the second 2, got those in. Alright, you're not going to be able to see it well, but the basket is that away, that's what I'm aiming for. Alrighty, this hole, I constantly throw my driver that away, so I need to anhyzer this a little bit better. That was the early release, unfortunately. And plus that twirl bit, not the type of commitment I needed to make to that shot. There we go. Didn't quite clear it. So I'll just stick to the low game. Got through. Let me just go straight, maybe a little low. There we go. Straighter but low. Let this turn. It's going to add it from the left side, but it's clear. Similar line with this. I turned it too much. Last but not least, whip it. Wow, that is perfect. That may be the best throw of the 7. Alright, just to show you what I'm passing up, I've got the straight, unobstructed shot from this T-bird, but it is the 3rd furthest disc away. Let's go check on the closest disc. Alright, so technically this whippet is the actual closest disc, but I'm obstructed. The T-bird had the greatest chance for a freak birdie look, but this I would pass up a birdie for a more easy par. It's a little closer and all my discs should curve that way. It turned, so it basically turned into a roller. That one turned too, but this should fade. There we go. Right behind the basket. Alright, so this is a 15-foot putt, so I might as well get the practice in. Alright, so the basket is a good ways. That way is like over 200 feet. I've got 7 attempts to get close. Technically I could have done that with the forehand, tried to let it naturally curve that way. That at least attempted to fade. Just got to do more hyzer. That has a natural turn of 2, negative 2, so. Alright, so you can see how I normally play this hole is pretty badly. That was a straight up shank. Come on, fade. Beat a disc with fade. Here's one with mega fade that I can shank a little bit. So note to self, don't ever play anything overstable on this hole. Try to hyzer and see what happens. A very overstable disc like the Pig or the Whippet is a beginner's friend only in that if you have a tendency to late release and or throw with too much anhyzer, this will help correct a little bit and maybe stop the bleeding when you're out on the course as you're trying to figure that out. Four close attempts, 4 tap-ins, i.e. I should make them. Alright, so these trees used to have a sign on them or near them called Mando, but it looks like it's gone and no one's considering that as a Mando. Regardless, I'm going to try to throw up to 7 attempts through these 2 trees. Backhand, stand still, wish me luck. That's not a surprise. Nor that. I'm probably going to hit the trees with all of them, but let's hope that I don't. There we go. That's the full flight that I want. But it still hit a tree. Alright, here's the FD. And to be honest, I like the fact that this is not a Mando because I'd love to have a forehand throw around that way. Or maybe do that. That would have been with my Leopard. And I didn't hit a tree. There we go. That one has an aggressive turn or an aggressive fade. This one's more stable but a less aggressive fade according to the statistics. Now I've made it a little bit more understable. Let's try a forehand. Otherwise I'd have to throw this way. Actually, you know, let's throw this way. Man, oh well. Good shot. Alright, so 4 terrible throws, 1 bad throw, and 2 good throws. I'm taking the best throw here. Two easy putts, 2 hard putts. Alright, just so you know what we're working with, this is going to require a standstill for someone like myself. Understable disc one way, stable disc the other way. Let's see what I get. That's the only 2 I can risk doing that. Everything else I have to fire this way. There we go. I'm trying to go over that branch. was a deliberate shank, so I wanted to see what that would do. That's the closest to the line that I want. Unfortunately, it takes so many tries to get through the trees. I have a deliberate window that I'm looking at. This one I'm going to go lower because it's a whippet. Unfortunately, the whippet went straight long enough to hit the tree I was trying to avoid. Alright, this is the closest my overstable disc went. Wait until you see what my understable leopard did. Alright, so I've never done this before. Never sailed a disc past the basket. My cheetah was actually further back over there, but this was even closer. So the understable disc at an anhyzer looks like a route if you can't get it with forehand. Now I'm going to putt. Too much strength on that one. Alright, just so you know where the basket is for a reference point. That was an early release. It slipped out of my hand. Unfortunately, it's not going to be easy to replicate what I wanted to do with any other disc that I could with that leopard. That is the closest I can do, but I threw that too high. A lot of these holes in this course are lefty lines or anhyzer righty lines. Not enough anhyzer. And each one of these I'm going to have to do more anhyzer than the last. That was a bit of a shank. Just because it went the right direction doesn't mean it was intentional. There we go. A little gust of wind caught that. I would not ordinarily be throwing these backhand on this. Wow, I released that flat to almost hyzer. And hyzer or bust for the whippet. There we go. Look at that. And I even went straight through most of its flight. That's cool. I just find it interesting that yet again I'm throwing my whippet better than the others simply because it's so overstable. It's compensating for my failure to throw at the right release angle. But this is the closest disc to there and closer than I usually get on this hole. Of course I had 7 attempts, so naturally I'm going to get one that's pretty decent. But it's time to putt. And really I'm just trying to go for a layup at this point. Now I can run it. Notice how I'm going high on each one of these attempts? Oh, that high. I went too high because it's a pig. I keep overpowering the pig. Alrighty, let's summarize, shall we? I threw a lot yesterday. I threw a lot today. The process of learning your discs never really changes because as you hit things with your disc, they get more unstable over time, and I've certainly done no shortage of that today. But I'm going to throw one last set, maybe 2 last sets of big throws to get as close to that basket as possible. And we're going to see how it goes. Alright, one last set of big throws. Hopefully. That was my attempt to duplicate that line and I overcommitted. Okay, I got to do a little more hyzer on this one because this one is just more finicky. That was a shank. I'm going to need to start putting these out there in a good spot in the fairway. There we go. That's the flight path I expected out of that eagle. Same for the T-bird. Not as understable, not as much fade in the end. Last but not least, Anheuser, whee! Oh, I threw that too high. Hit those trees. You see that? That's called a flex, or an S-curve. Let's go pick up some discs. Alright, so I had 3 good throws, fairly close to each other, all with very good lines to the basket. I'm going to go ahead and choose this eagle. And really I could throw any disc that I want here. I'm going to see what I can do with the drivers, just to see how close I can get. At least 2 of my putters I can't use, the Rhino and the AVR, because it's just beyond my range, but we'll see. I think I'm going to throw everything at it and just see what it looks like. I would not use these approach discs normally. But you only live once. Notice they're getting a little more overstable. That was a hyzer, so I can't blame that just on stability. I contributed to that. It wasn't a straight release like I intended. That was too low. I got sweat in my eyes. Now here's something really overstable. I released it too late. I like the angle though. And now this. There we go. The wind is coming this way, by the way. All right, now here's what I would do when I would try to approach, normally with a putter. That's understable, so I compensated for that. This one's overstable, so the flight path's going to look different. Oh man, Anheuser. That's a legitimate approach disc. There we go. Still learning my discs. Alrighty, so what are my takeaways from this session? I've learned a little bit more about the discs that I have, including some relatively new ones, and I've managed to adjust a little bit to how I play this course. In the future, I'll try different things that I've done in the past from learning this. So this has been a practice session in 2 ways. In one way to learn the course, but another way, and more important to me, is to learn my discs and to get a better feel for what I need to do with them in the throwing mode I'm going to be doing most of the time, which is standstill backhand. So thank you very much for coming along with me on this, and have a great day.